Welcome to SFH Presents One More Podcast.
Welcome to SFH Presents One More Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Polk, here with my co-host, Ty Southern.
Hey.
Today we have with us James Geering. Before we get to James, we need to remind you that we are not medical professionals. It's just some people talking about shit. If you need help, go to someone that really knows what they're doing, preferably. Or a close friend, whatever makes you feel good, I suppose. James, we always start off with the same question, and I kind of prepared you for this, but what does still fucking here mean to you?
Say it, still fucking here.
Still fucking here.
I think if there's one word that's really surfaced that I think we need more than anything else, is hope. And still fucking here means that you still believe in hope. You still have hope. I think, recently that's really been diminished. It's really, if you think about, are you hearing a message of, you could be better when you work through your struggles? Are you hearing a message to our young people about you could be anything you want in this world? Are you telling people that come from other countries that you can start afresh here and you too can be anything? I think that's hope. So I think when you infuse hope, you make the world better. So I still believe. I think that's why I'm still here.
I love that.
Still finding hope. SFH.
It's funny. It's funny you talk about young people in that word and talking to young people about that they can do anything. My daughter is about to turn 21, and it's like the balance of telling a kid of like, hey, you can do anything you want to do. And then when they start to grow older and realize the realities of things is that there are some limitations as to who you are and what you're good at and so on and so forth. So it's like trying to find that balance of still telling her, look, there's these things you love and these things you're good at, and you can do that. But it's going to take a lot of ass busting. Like you're going to have to work harder than everyone else. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to balance those two statements. And I'm just kind of figuring this out.
Well, because you wanna foster hope, and you don't want them to ever have a glass ceiling put on them, or a box put around them that you were sort of responsible for. Because if you want them to be grounded in their hopes, like in their dreams and their goals and their aspirations, but you also want them to know that they can also shoot for the damn stars.
Right.
But yeah, when you're in the trying to make sure they're grounded in their expectation, you're like, you're towing the line between squashing dreams and being an asshole and making sure you still sound supportive. It's awkward. I don't like it.
Well, I think you
just hit my legs, so I don't have to tightrope anymore.
When you said shoot for the stars, it's funny. My wife says shoot for the moon, you might hit the stars. I think that's backwards, isn't it? But, if you think about that, if you say you can be anything, wherever they land on the ladder, it might be a few rungs down, but they're still going to be higher than if you're like, well, you live in West Virginia, so you're going to be a miner. It is what it is, So I think giving people hope, and then they'll realize where their actual capacity is. Like I'm not going to be a rocket scientist, for example, but believing I could do anything took me on some pretty interesting paths.
Yeah. I think it's just to consider how difficult that is to balance as a kid gets older, because my daughter, I played music for the last 30 years. My dad played for 49 years before he died. And that's what she loves and what she wants to do. And trying to get her to understand that there's a lot of fucking great things that you can call success between here and fame. You don't have to be a famous artist and be, you know what I'm saying, Billie Eilish or someone else to be successful and to be happy and fulfilled with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm finding. Like I'm trying to like shape her a little bit back into this space of like, set your expectations realistic, and maybe you go further than you think you're going to go, but you can find happiness here. You don't have to just wait until you hit that point and think everything else is a failure.
Yeah. I think if you're an artist, then you keep believing in what you're doing. I think the problem is some people chase fame and their vehicle might be singing or dancing or whatever. But if it's really about that status, then you're not really going to sustain that journey. But if you love singing or you love playing guitar or whatever it is, if that leads you to a wider audience, then beautiful. But if you're still happy playing to your dog, that to me is pure.
Yeah. And there's plenty of artists these days, especially with the internet. It's so different than it was pre-internet, whenever we were only kind of allowed to listen to the shit that was fed to us through the radio. Mm-hmm. Where nowadays, everybody can, if you just work hard and put yourself in front of people and believe in yourself, like you said, you can get some level of success. You might play smaller shows than you dreamed of. You might play, you build your own audience and you get some traction and you make a little money and you make enough to survive or even just be a supplemental income or whatever. It might not be the mansion and the fame, but like there's some level of success there that you could be really happy with.
Absolutely.
People who are appreciating you for you and you're able to be yourself thoroughly. That to me is a fucking win. A lot of people at the top don't even have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Garrett Hedlund's character from Country Strong, the movie. I would say that he was the next big thing to watch in country music. He was going to be the biggest thing next year kind of thing. And he bounced from all of it. And it was just like that. I got a buddy in California who's got a ranch, needs some work. And there's a little bar in town. They'll let me play music on the weekends. And it's like, that's all I need. I need some people, road weary people who want to hear my music. Like, and I'm like, okay.
I don't know what the fuck movie you're talking about.
Country Strong? It's a good one. It's got Tim McGraw, Gwyneth Paltrow, Garrett Hedlund.
Good Lord, man. If we can find like a movie trivia night, I want to bring you along. What'd you do? We lost you for a second.
I touched nothing.
Yeah, you should. You says Ty this recording will continue on a new track. Yeah, you must have dropped and then came back. I don't know, dude.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
You can?
Yeah.
Because something just went right in my ear. That shit hurt.
Nothing but the best around here at the SFH studios.
Sound in my ear. Yes. If it's movie trivia, I like being in the team. If it's all around trivia, I'm gonna get embarrassed real quick about the things I don't know too. Like, if it's movies, I'm gonna scare you with the amount of dumb shit I know. But general knowledge, we're fucked unless it goes to movies.
Yeah, you can always tell when a movie comes up and Ty's hard as a rock for half the rest of the episode.
Oh, shush. Like, the camera doesn't go that low anyways.
So tell us a little about your story. As I've explained to the listeners before, we kind of get to know everybody as they do.
So, born and bred in England on a farm, son of a veterinary surgeon. Wanted to be a firefighter or a doctor when I was younger. Was told I was colorblind, so couldn't be a firefighter. I wasn't told. I saw my grades, so I wasn't going to be a doctor. Ended up working as a stuntman, of all things. Fell into that. Moved to Japan. Met an American girl. Moved to America. Realized that I wasn't colorblind. Became a firefighter. Became a paramedic. Worked for 14 years on the East and West Coast. And then after seeing the ill health in the first responder professions, started the Behind the Shield podcast 8 years ago, transitioned out the fire service 6 years ago to focus on being a voice for the people that are in. And then wrote 2 books after that. That's kind of the bullet points.
Wow. Man,
Sizzling.
How do they misdiagnose colorblindness?
So
this is my question.
It's the same as when they do a psychological test for first responders. They use a thing called MMPI, which was never meant to be a standalone test. It's a box checking thing. So there's this book, and my wife's about to be an eye doctor, so I've asked her about this. It gives you an indication that there is a level of color deficit, but they use it as an absolute. You either can or you can't. Well, you know, just like vision, it's not 20/20 and Stevie Wonder. There's all these things in between. And so I've got red-green deficiency, so I can't see some of the numbers. So, but if, what I did eventually in America, I was like, well, just point to something. I'll tell you what color it is. Did that a few times, and they were like, oh, you can see color. You're good to go. So
your little PIP test, I can't see the number in the middle of your little PIP PIP test.
Exactly.
But yeah, I know that the trucks we drives is red. I know that the fire is also red.
yeah. I don't need to see what color it is to know it's going to burn people.
Yeah.
So
make it stop.
Wow, that's
I know what
fascinating.
shape fire is, so I don't need to know what color it is. Make that stop doing that.
So generally, the podcast it began with the idea that we're going to talk to survivors, and then we came to the realization that's literally every human being. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone's a survivor of some shit. Like we've all been through various levels of trials, things that we've went through. We have had a firefighter on once before. That's such a fascinating thing to me. One, because of the things you see and having to go home and not carry that with you and go back and do it the next day. We've also had on a couple of cops, and kind of the same thing, but they're hated, and firefighters are generally not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we're kind of respected, but when it comes for actually asking for support, it's the same as the cops. Front and center. I mean, especially now in LA, for example, those men and women are getting a lot of adoration. But if you look at how understaffed, overworked, underslept they are, when it comes to asking the city or the county for support, they'll have the same as the cops, which is next to nothing. So, this is the problem actually that we have, is that people say, oh, everyone loves firefighters. But even the story we've told the world, that we have this amazing shift, that we're, only work 10 days a month. If you extrapolate, because we work 24 hours at a time, there's 3 civilian days crammed together. I stumbled across some math yesterday. If you look at how many hours a firefighter works, this is without the mandatory overtime that's happening at the moment. We work for 364 days a year.
Wow.
So that gives you 1 day off a year, on paper. So because it's crammed together. Days. Yeah. So because it's crammed together, every 24 we do is 3 days. And then we say we have 2 days off. We don't. The first 8 hours of that you're still at the station. So you really have a day off. So you work 3 days on, 1 day off. So it's we've done it to ourselves, though. We're selfless servants, as it were, and we've got a heart for serving, but we've not even allowed. We haven't evolved. Whereas this, the EMS came in, and then the call loads, and the 911 abuse, or the non-emergent calls, if you want to say that. So now this is why you see all the time firefighters and cops dying of everything. Is we are really just so understaffed now. So if we're telling everyone that we're great and we have this amazing schedule, well, everyone's going to, oh, well, they're fine. We have to actually tell the truth as a profession, what's really going on, so we can fix it.
Absolutely.
So would you say you're understaffed? Is that just a funding issue mostly, or is that an issue of people not going into the profession?
So it's interesting. I shared an article from the New York Times a few days ago, and it was saying that Gen Z are actually going into the trades now. And my bonus boy, my stepson, is here. He's a mechanic. Perfect example. And so it's not because people say, oh, it's because these young kids don't want to work. I call BS on that. Now, the obesity crisis and everything, have we got as many people physically able to be Marines or firefighters or cops? No, there's not as many, but there's enough. But when these young men and women look at what it's actually like to be, let's just say, a firefighter, because that's what I know, and they say 56 hours a week, and then this mandatory overtime means you get told you can't go home. That's an 80-hour work week. The divorces, the addiction, the overdoses, the testosterone depletion, the medical issues with our children, all the things. They're looking at that, and this is a well-educated generation now that values their mental health, that talks about their emotions, that wants to be at home. They're looking at that and going, this is awful. I want to serve, but not in this way. So the good news is, if we fix it, we'll have a lot of people, because we used to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people testing for a handful of jobs. Now, if there's 20 jobs, there might be 25, 30 people testing. So you're taking almost everyone. And you can imagine, whether it's first responders or special forces, if you took every candidate downstream, that's going to be extremely dangerous. So
right, because you're not
getting the cream of the crop, really.
Exactly.
Right.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Fascinating.
You're getting who showed up.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's scary stuff to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the thing. They're showing up. They're working in LA. When it comes to the time to work, most of them are good firefighters. There's some bad ones in there, of course, like that chief who talked about. It's someone's fault if they get into a fire. But
that was horrible.
I would say, has that particular person been fired or reprimanded yet? Does anyone have any?
I'm not sure.
It was a very proud video that they put up. It was very it was a very left-leaning DEI type of video.
Because that's without trying to get too political. Infuriating quote, to say the least.
I shared a parody that someone did, and I'm assuming the guy's actually in a wheelchair, but it was the same kind of thing. And he was talking about
Bumblebee.
the kind of bigotry in the fire service. It's kind of leg centric. And he's talking about, if someone gets in the fire and he says the exact quote that she says, and he's like, people say, can I get people out the fire? It's like, well, as long as they've got a gentle slope to their their front porch, and I can
as long as there's a ramp, I got him.
It was spot on because they called it out perfectly. So
Yeah. And no one's ever been in a fire ever, no matter their gender, and been like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
like
there I go again, silly me.
Oh darn, I got lost and now I'm in a fire. Like, no, like you fucking psycho.
I'm trying to find the video that so I can show you, Ty. But all the clips are all like news clips. There's a particular video that you need to see where they're like, it's basically I'm pretty sure it's a trans woman of color that says.
That's why I said they. I assume they prefer that, but that. I saw that say that.
Where it was more like if you're being saved in a fire, you want someone that looks like you. Like,
that kind of bullshit.
Come on,
I'm just
man.
like, no. I want someone who passed all tests and qualifications with flying colors. I don't give a fuck what flavor of human they are. Like,
do you think when you're in that horrific situation, you give a fuck?
No. Plus, at what bit of your skin can you see in full fire gear?
That's another good point.
Riddle me that, sir.
That's
because you got what right here, maybe, right?
Yeah, not even that. So this is the thing. The only prejudice, bigotry that belongs in the fire service, that actually makes sense, is seeing the firefighters who can and the firefighters who can't. Because we're all wearing that gear. It's dark, it's smoky. You can see the one. Yeah, but you can see the person who's doing everything they can not to go in the fire. You can see the person who's tapping out because they're not in shape. You can see the one that needs two bunker gears sewn together to even fit in. So that's the only prejudice. They take the mask off. Oh, it's a black, lesbian or, whatever. It's irrelevant. She just kicked ass in that fire. He, whatever it was.
Yeah,
so
whoever just dragged you out did the damn thing.
It's the great equalizer, yeah. But if, that lady in that video, that person, if she's not physically able to, then she's a disgrace to the fire service. It's that simple.
I'm saying.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. The whole conversation, the narrative going on right now, you have to at least appreciate a little. And I'm not on a political side. I don't give a shit. But the idea that meritocracy is where it's at, like it really has to do with your merit and how good you are at the job. At the vast majority of things, it doesn't matter.
Well, I love seeing the outrage for that as well because for a few years there, it felt like I was taking crazy pills. I'm like, this is. Everyone's that's what you're supposed to say. She was allowed to say that on camera. Like they didn't say cut, try that shit again, stupid. Like but he was saying the Gen Z, whichever one the next one is they got pushed. They watched the one right above them get pushed so hard in one direction where it was, if you're not exactly like this, you're the fucking problem. Even though I'm not exactly like that, so I'm the problem. But we're not going to talk about that. It all goes back to fucking Hitler not looking for Aryan superhumans when he wasn't blonde hair, blue eyed. Like, it's just one of those, like, you don't fit the bill that you're saying everyone needs to fit. And they freaking made everyone feel so terrible for so long that everyone's just like, fuck that. That's not how we're going to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. I like that the main thing was outrage, was just like, oh yeah, you think they're doing shit right. Watch this video. And I'm like, oh yay, everyone hates this too. It like,
you weren't even
before we
allowed
get to fixing it, I'm excited that more people are being louder about hating it, at least. Steps, progress, not perfection.
You just weren't even allowed to question it.
Yeah.
Like in these past decade or however long it's been, where it's like, if you were to question that and say, hey, what the fuck is that talking about? I just want someone competent.
Yeah.
And then you would be called a racist and a homophobic and all these things. Like, I'm not any of that. Like, yeah. I'm cool with everybody.
I just happen to be white and straight. I'm sorry. Like that is apparently public enemy numero un. But like,
so going through, I'm sure you've seen some crazy shit over the years being a firefighter. Going through all that, what was your coping mechanism? Did you ever find a point where you started to kind of take it home and you had to actually the other firefighter had mentioned to us that what do they call it? You suffer some kind of death at the beginning, where you like you yourself die inside a little bit, and you have to kind of come back and recreate yourself in this new way to cope with all of it.
I don't remember what he called it.
It's interesting. It might be ego death. Is that what he was saying?
Might have been it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So I've had a lot of people on the show. I've had over 1,000 interviews, and more often than not, the people that really struggled, had a lot going on even before they put the uniform on. And that's not to say that if you've had shit happen, it's going to affect you when you're in. But when I reflect, because like when I was 4, I was almost killed in a house fire. My sister was in there and she got us out. But I mean, we came out, we were covered in soot. I mean, it was really close.
Wow.
And then a nasty divorce and another near-death experience. And so there was stuff there. But I also grew up on a farm, like I said. So I had a big family. We always ate around the table. There were people coming through the doors from like extended royal family through to gypsies. So we had this diverse group of, humans, which was amazing. My dad was healing, it was fresh air, it was dirt, it was all the things. So, I just hit the lottery as far as my upbringing, where without any deliberate attempt, there were these natural things woven in where I was able to process the bad stuff. A lot of people didn't have that because of where they were born and their family dynamic. No fault of anyone's. I'm not any better than anyone because I didn't struggle as badly. But I think this is why, it's really important. The stuff that we see is part of it, but the childhood trauma element, that's a significant thing. And if left unaddressed and pushed down, the foundation that you're building your career on is already, fractured. So this is why I think it's so important that what we should do with our first responders is have mental health counseling or therapies from day one. And if you just talk about the weather and football, and so be it. But you're probably going to find yourself getting to some of these things, starting to work through them. And then that becomes a strength. That's post-traumatic growth. But we're not having this conversation. That psych thing I said, the check in the box, either you can or you can't. All right, well, you had a physical, you held to a physical standard in the academy. Well, we'll let that go. The fire service doesn't have one usually, not a punitive one. So you set them up here, and then you put them out into the meat grinder, and we wonder why they start falling apart. And then, like I said, you add the sleep deprivation, and now you've amplified everything.
Wow.
Sorry, quick rewind. They don't require weight and physical standards after you leave the academy?
No. So you will get hired, and this is most. There are anomalies out there, but most of the fire service does not have a punitive annual standard that you need to be held to. Some of them might have it, but there's absolutely no, punitive element.
So thing, where they're,
yeah. So I had one.
I am shocked to hear that, and I hate that a lot. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's also probably a result of what you were saying, is that when you don't have a lot of people to draw from, you kind of got to
you can't start.
No, that's just long standing. This is pretty much, and I think it comes.
We're trying to make it better.
Well, the culture used to be, I think, a lot more active. When I came on, my captain in Anaheim, for example, they, you look at pictures, they were all in good shape. They were all sports people. It was in the culture.
Yeah.
And then it kind of came down, for example, again, this is not all departments, but there are a lot of unions that consist of out of shape firefighters. So then they will oppose fitness standards for their own self-interest rather than the ability to perform and retire healthily. So, it's definitely something that we need to address. First, we need to address the work week and give them more time and, rest and recovery. But then we got to put that standard back where it needs to be, because, if you're a Marine Recon or SEAL or SAS, and they were like, well, we're not going to hold you to a standard because that's not fair. I mean, imagine the Bin Laden raid, a bunch of, out of shape SEALs, and Bin Laden
Gravy SEAls.
So, it's laughable when you compare it to other professions. Hawaiian Ocean Lifeguard, imagine 300 pounds, trying to swim out to someone. It's not going to happen. In fire and police and EMS, we just have allowed it and not questioned it. So
that's crazy. I mean, when you think about it, like,
that is alarming to hear.
There's plenty of fields where we're bending the rules for out of shape people, or even DEI practices. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't need the best of the best. But I would say firefighter is up there with military, doctors. There's certain shit where we need the best of the best. You need some standards. You need to be able to put the best people in the best position to do the best job.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah, we need to get back to the 1950s playgrounds at schools.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen those pictures? It was
I
like
had,
survival of the fittest at recess.
I had a guy on the podcast who did a documentary on the 1960s program in California where they almost had like a belt system for PE. The kids did it as groups. And if you look at their seniors, any one of them could have been on Muscle and Fitness, not as a bodybuilder, as an actual athlete. It's phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I like how that sounds, because I mean, make it a competition too, and something to obtain where the other kids will be like, oh shit, you're only at that belt, you need to tighten up, like, or whatever. Like I like that a lot. That needs to happen.
And then even the math kids and the clarinet kids were still in good shape. They weren't the best athletes, but it's not the point. And then if you want to join the football team or baseball, you're just learning the skill because you're already in great shape. You're fit enough
Have a
for
great
the sport.
baseline.
Yeah, so it was a
Having
win-win.
a great baseline of health is never bad.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when it comes to kids, if a kid's got a weight problem or a kid's got certain problems, the parents' fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it ends up falling on the kid if the kid feels like shit and loses his entire self-esteem because he's picked on and shit on or can't, keep up. And I'm sure that's why they bend a lot of that shit. But that should be something also that parents are educated in.
100%.
Like Wednesday at trivia, we had there's these people that I don't want to, I'm sure they don't watch podcasts, but in case they do, well, fuck it. I don't care if they watch it. I'm just going to say true shit. They're big people. Like, they're big people. They live next door. They come in, and their son, who's clearly in school, is a very big boy. And when they came in this last week, the adult, smelled so bad that people were leaving the bar. Like, it made the whole bar smell bad. And you're like, man, like, how do you address that? It shouldn't be my job, but I might have to, if this happens again, address it because it's going to hurt my night. And then you look at the kid and you're like, he didn't have a fucking chance. If that guy is that poorly taken care of himself,
that's
normal. His son is just fucked.
Well, even those parents were children, that were probably conditioned as well.
I doubt they started the cycle.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we keep winning food victories. Red dye number, 7? Already got nixed. I would say hopefully we can keep winning, because that's a big part of it too. A lot of the processed bullshit that we don't need. Hopefully, was it RFK? Really makes a lot of headway with all that, because it would help. Obviously, there's a mindset issue and there's a lot of other things, but it would help if the nutrition that was being put in them was better. It'd definitely be one of the building blocks to getting everything back to good.
It's a money issue too. I mean, when you live in a country where cheap food and shitty, unhealthy food is way cheaper, and everybody, the vast majority of people living check to check are trying to save $1 at the grocery store. Like, that's a problem too.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying organic, go buy organic, go to fresh market only. Publix,
no, but even eating healthy at all.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, the shit I'm talking about is the shit that'll make that stuff better. Like, because they compared, what was it, Canadian Fruit Loops to American Fruit Loops was the article, and it's like 4 ingredients versus our like 19 or something, and you can't pronounce half of ours. And a lot of it is dyes and things that are unnecessary. You can use fruit to frickin' color shit. Like, and they've already got red dye, whichever out, which is one of the things that bothers Damon, my son. He's on the spectrum, and dyes fuck with him big time, make his behavior real terrible. So if he ends up winning more like that, getting a lot of the dyes and all the artificial extra processed poison out, just the Pop-Tarts and the processed shit will be less processed. It'll be less stepped on. They're going to make the food less stepped on, so the stuff that is the cheaper stuff will be healthier.
It'll probably be cost more too, because it's probably why it's as cheap as it is.
Well,
Which
the thing is, there's a false economy, though. This is the thing. I think that we're short-sighted in America. Imagine what the obesity crisis cost this country.
You're right.
You know what I mean? There's so much more value in actually creating cheaper food. And if more people eat better food, healthy food becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But then they might save, maybe not even now. I think fast food is so expensive now that it's actually starting to shift already. But let's
Yeah,
say
fast food's not
hypothetically,
cheap.
yeah, say it is cheaper. Well, then what is that person spending on prescriptions and doctor's visits and all
Right.
the things that come along with being unwell? There's a huge downstream cost. So, if you want to make a massive saving in this country, you make people healthy. Like where I grew up in England back then, when the NHS was fully funded and supported, the whole point was to keep Brits healthy because we're using tax money when we are sick. Now you look at America, it's a profit-based healthcare system. We don't want people to be healthy or dead, but everything in between, I've got an addict.
We
Right.
can
life.
make money off them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you keep people unhealthy. I mean, even going back to COVID, whenever they found out that having low vitamin D had a massive impact on how you were affected by COVID,
So stay inside.
and that was never the narrative. Like they're never going to put that out.
So make
there.
sure you stay inside. Because
Exactly.
there's no vitamin D in there.
Get
Well,
some
it shows-
sunlight. Take a vitamin D supplement. Man.
Close the shutters. The sun will help you get COVID.
Well, what shows that it was never about health, and I stood in the middle, during that whole thing, just so disappointed that it was like World War I trenches on either side of me. The only truth that came out of COVID was the healthier the population, the more chance they had of recovering from this virus. The virus was real, but there was nothing done about the health of the American people. In fact, if you wrote down how would I make people sicker, that is exactly what they did. Stay at home, don't be around your family and friends, get fast food and alcohol delivered to your house, and binge watch Tiger King, and we'll let you know when you can come out.
I forgot that Tiger King was like the show of the beginning of Plus,
that's real. That's real shit.
I'm from Florida. The lockdown was only like 2 months here. So like I have a hard time. It wasn't this big block of my life. I already was a stay-at-home person. I retired in 2012. And so the Florida, we were super worried with 2 small children about getting stuff. Like once the first week or so happened and we were able to get the things that the kids needed, it was basically business as usual around here. She didn't have a job either for at least then. So me and my then wife, we were already stay-at-home people doing that. So, but yeah, the end of it ended up being the end of that too. So shit happens.
I hate when a motherfucker calls me and then calls me right back after I didn't reject it. Like, bitch, you don't know me like that.
Yeah, no. I was just saying. I'm doing it. I'm changing my outgoing to include before you call back, ask yourself, was this textable? Like
another great point.
Like, yeah, and if you're gonna call them, and someone else, I hate these things. I'm sorry, tangent 30. Just yesterday, I had the same number call me like 9 times throughout the day. Never once left a message. And I'm like, no. I've been the victim of some of these stupid ass schemes before and have never felt. And honestly, the getting my money back wasn't as bad as feeling so freaking stupid. So like, yeah, if I don't know the number or you don't leave me a message as to why it is you're calling me, your number doesn't exist anyways. It's officially deemed don't answer that. And I know I keep my voicemail empty. Like, so it's not because it's backed up in full. Leave me a voicemail. And then think, could you have texted me about this? Sorry. Back to the stuff.
So just making sure. I wouldn't want to cut into your tangent. I was letting you have the floor there. I'm glad you kept at least one middle finger, dude.
It's the only. Yeah, that's why I had to get the thumbs up tattooed on this guy because I can't physically do one. That's as high as my thumb goes. If I force it, it bends.
Yeah, that's a weak thumbs up, but that middle finger is solid.
Yeah, it's like longer than it should be. It's good. They capitalized it.
So because just kind of circling back, because you grew up in a healthy household, you're saying that you never really had a difficult time processing like leaving it at work, basically.
It was less about work and more about what else was happening. Like I went through a divorce. My son was only, I think he was barely 3 at that point. You know, there were some really challenging times, but I never had the calls that bothered me. Now, let me rephrase, let me be very kind of underline a point. When I've had calls with children that are the same age as my son, absolutely you feel them a lot more. But it wasn't like I was bothered by them. I had a flashback once, and it was years later after a call that was literally my son's age. And I was in Disney, and this little girl had been killed in a car crash, and the engine crew had put a blanket over her, and her little feet were sticking out the bottom. Well, years later in Disney, there was someone it was a hot day. They had a blanket over their kids so they weren't getting the sun in their face, and their little feet were poking out. And I just had this rush of kind of like adrenaline. And that's the only time I've ever had. And even then, I sat down for a moment, just kind of breathed a few times, and then I was good. So again, it's like, well, why weren't you haunted like so many people? Even, the firefighter you had before, Chad, why didn't I have such an extreme reaction? And it's just because I think it's like hope, like we talked about in the first place. Oh, if you actually are able to find the things and work through some of this stuff, it does become resilience. It does become strength. Because I am like I said, no better than any other man or woman that wears a uniform. But something was different because I've had so many of my friends that have been sitting there with that gun and that bottle of whiskey, and I haven't. Even though, divorce was absolutely awful. I was a single dad. I was working so much and, exhausted and sleep deprived and going through paramedic school. So I had lows, but never that I have a plan, I'm staring at my Glock, that kind of low. So, or, drinking as soon as I get off shift. I never had that either, even though I drink, have historically drunk frequently. So there's certainly a grab, but not to forget, not to feel, not to sleep.
No, yeah, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah, which is terrible, but yeah, it is.
I mean, right? I mean, it's a big, having a pint is a bigger thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even like wine, like Europe, we have wine with dinner and all that stuff. So it is kind of ingrained, not an excuse, but it is a pattern. There. So,
but also you understand that it's to make one feel better, feel even better, not feel better.
Yeah,
that's always the rule with drinking. Always drink to feel even better, never to feel better.
Yeah,
yeah. Exactly. But even in the depths of my depression, or in when I was in those lows where I was struggling with suicidal ideation, when I would drink, like when I played shows, it was never as a crutch. You know what I mean? Even when I was coming from a starting bad place, I was never like, I'm going to drink because of this reason. It was more just to loosen up, have a good time, have a good night, and I could kind of set that shit aside and just enjoy the night.
Well, because you knew you had to for the stage, or you'd stop getting invited back.
Yeah, probably. yeah. I mean, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to like putting on that act that you're having a great time, and I'm going to be the guy who's going to MC this fucking fun we're about to have.
Yep.
If I'm, wobbling in there, fucking ooh. Yeah, there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Don't kick out the footlights. It doesn't go very well for people who kick out the footlights.
Gross. I just found a piece of dried lettuce in my pocket.
That was random.
How the fuck did that get in there?
I have no earthly clue.
It's disgusting.
You lettuce?
That's rude. But yeah, it's occasionally.
I would say we talked. You don't like salad very much, do you?
I love salad. Are you kidding me? I'd eat salad every day. I don't, but I would.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things that we thought was funny. You'd mentioned that. You're like, yeah, my diet's not great, but I love salad. I'll fuck up a salad, but my whole diet's not super great. No, but so I get that a lot as well, because I've never been on the edge of ending it all. And people think that's odd, considering I'm down 3 limbs. And I've never been there. I had a shitty day or two that like made the record. Be like, oh man, I had a panic attack, and then I had surgery, and it was the 4th of July. After surgery, they wouldn't let me go see the fireworks outside. They wouldn't roll me outside so I could see the fireworks. So yeah, the 4th of July, 2010 sucked. But like
Dude, if that explosion went a little further up your thigh, you'd be speaking a whole different tune.
I preach. I'm saying, like, no, and my one leg, the left was open to my hip. There's a Frankenstein stitch all the way up to my hip bone. So I know that's why I can't be all meh. I'm like, no, I got a limb and something else I'm pretty cool with still. Like when they told me there shouldn't have been defined, and I seem to have You know, most of the important shit. Everything's fine. But I always credit it back to my family and how I was raised. And the farm, I didn't have a farm situation. I was raised suburbia, really. But why World War II, why that was the greatest generation, was because it was not, what am I going to get out of this? What am I going to get out of that? They joined because they had to, because the world was in peril. And then when they were done, it was, what's next? Take care of my family. The mindset was there and different. And when you're raised on a farm, that's the same mindset. You wake up, oh, the bell's going, you know, all right, what's the first chore? All right, what's the next chore? All right, we got to ride the fence to make sure none of the cows get out. Like, you know, everything is another step. So you don't have time to sit there and fucking dwell on any of it anyways. And riding a fence is a long time to think about stuff anyways. So you know, you work it out while you're working it out, basically. And people don't get that because they sit and dwell and find themselves in the dark corners of their mind all alone. And there's something to working through it while you're working through something else, if that makes sense.
What's interesting about the World War II generation, because as I ask people about their journeys and we start at the beginning of their life, a lot of times I say my dad did this, and I mention the granddad, and a lot of times granddad was World War II generation. And like you said, that selfless, heroic service that generation does, even if you just think logistics. Like, we have GPS. They're like, right, we're in France now, go find the Nazis. Yeah. I mean, totally different thing. But
due northeast.
Exactly. So, but you hear more often than not, the granddad was a drunk. He was, you know, abusive to his wife. And this is not casting shade.
It caught up at the end.
It had an effect, but we almost like didn't give them a chance to actually process and kind of give, you know, allow them to feel the way they're actually feeling. Because we're like, you're the greatest generation in the, you know, you just rolled your sleeves up and you went to work. And I think we did a big disservice because a lot of those men and women were hurting behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And that has carried on certainly over the next couple of generations and is definitely a contributing factor to some of the struggles that we have today.
Especially in men.
I concur
Especially
with that.
in men.
Yes.
And what's funny is that the pendulum swinging back, you were talking about kids earlier and how, you know, they're almost overly emotional and open about their emotions to the point that it's sort of a problem and the pendulum has almost swung too far. It's like that somewhere in the middle of being able to put your head down and go to work and also speak about your feelings.
That's what I'm saying. This next generation coming up is going to be that. Because, we went from don't talk about anything, bury it down, put drinks on top of it. And then got all this way, and it pretty much became Brendan Fraser in Bedazzled. When he was when's that damn sunset gonna set? Crying about everything. Like, hopefully these next couple are getting back to the middle where we're just like, okay, that sucked, and I'm gonna deal with it later. I've got work to do right now.
I'd kick my own ass if I didn't ask you about the stuntman part of your life.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Let's hear about this shit.
Anything we would have seen?
Well, when I was young, I wanted to be a stuntman as well because the Fall Guy was on TV. But even though if I look back, I probably was a stunt kid growing up on a farm, and we didn't have our own horses. We had the horses that my dad was taking care of. So we'd be put on all kinds of maniacs, and, you know, I don't know how I didn't break my neck. So there was a part of it. But very long story short, I was dating a girl I used to work in summer camps. It's like an exchange program between American camps and British colleges and universities. And so when I was there, I actually met a British girl. So when I came back for the first year, I was just visiting her, and we were, I think it was like 100 miles apart. And she was in a drama school doing costume and set design. So I was like, I'm just going to go try and get into their acting program, and so I can be with this girl. And I got in. I don't know how the hell I got in, but I got in. And discovered over the next year that I was probably one of the worst people that's ever attempted acting. But because I had a martial arts background, the stage combat, you know, the swords and all that stuff, just got the highest honors in that. So
too easy.
Yeah, it was fun. So then when we went around the world, got to Australia, and Universal Studios was opening the Japanese park in Osaka, and they were auditioning in Sydney. And so on a whim again, you know, this is the thing about when you can believe you can be anything, you just say yes to it. I'm going to go try that. Why not?
Yeah.
And I got the job. So then I find myself in Osaka. That I broke up with the girl. We were kind of on our way out anyway. And so worked there. And then I met my son's mother, who's an American. So then came back and ended up moving to Orlando. And so I worked the theme parks. I'd worked Japan and then Orlando and California for the next 20 years as a stuntman. Just finished the Jason Bourne stunt show in Orlando a couple years ago.
That's awesome.
That's
So
badass.
that as a side hustle.
It's a side hustle. I love that. No,
Did
so
you
you
ever
met a
come away
British
with any-
woman in America and an American in Japan.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
No, but I like your story. It leans on that, the belief in oneself, because you go from the farm in England to America for summer camp side gig to freaking Australia to, oh my gosh, all because you're just like, well, let's see what happens.
Exactly.
If it don't work out, I can just keep doing this here.
Exactly. Yeah, just not believing that, oh, you're supposed to do a 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, but just why not me? I think is it.
Yeah.
The other people that are doing that thing, they're just human beings. They grew up in diapers and all the things that every other human does. Why not you? And again, you might get to a certain point, like of being a regular doctor, and that's what's so funny. I became a paramedic, and that's really what I wanted to be. I just didn't realize it was a separate field. But as far as being an actual MD, educationally, I don't have the capacity or the real burning desire. So it ended up sending me in a different direction. So even though you were chasing medicine, it wasn't the medical doctor medicine. Ended up being paramedicine. So very much so. If you believe that that why not you? It may not take you to that destination. It might take you in some other interesting route instead. But if you just kind of conform to the mold, like, oh, I'm just supposed to do this and that's it, why don't you deserve to do other stuff? That's all I'd say.
It's true.
I like
it
that.
takes a lot of courage, and I feel like in society, dealing with this with my daughter as well, and I've dealt with this as being a 30-year musician, where I took a lot of heat for that. It's not that there's anything wrong with 9 to 5, like you said, but it's the fact that so many people settle into that because of the pressure or because whatever reasons that have nothing to do with what they actually want to do, but they don't have the courage or the wherewithal to like go through whatever you have to go through to get to those things. Because I'm sure there were hard times in the process. I'm sure there were times where it was like, look, what am I doing? I mean, there was for me as a musician where I'm like, there were times where it was a real struggle. It's a struggle right now. Like and there's been times when it's been extremely fruitful and I've done insanely cool shit. So it's like, I don't regret it. It's who I am. And I'm sure that you could say the same. Like the things you did weren't just shit you did. It was who you are.
Yeah. Well, even transitioning out of the fire service, for 14 years, I'd served other people and gone on the rigs and responded to calls, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But the universe threw this kind of crossroads at me. And the last place I worked, was just very complacent, and it wasn't going to change from the inside. It just wasn't. And so I took this leap of faith, and I gave up my pension, I gave up my benefits, I gave everything up, but it was for the right reason. It was to fix, to help the people who are out there to this day, whether on the hills of California or still looking for bodies in North Carolina. They deserve a voice. They deserve an environment that allows them to thrive. So, and just like you, I had, the pandemic when everyone was locked in, they were listening to podcasts more. And, that was actually not bad financially. But then the ripple effect of that, when businesses started cutting everything after, I barely made half what I gave up as a firefighter. But when you believe that you're doing the right thing, the freaking pensions and, benefits and all that stuff, they become less important. You realize it's kind of like what they call it, the golden handcuffs. You take a step back and it's like, well, I'm 50 years old. I don't even have a doctor. Why should I be so worried about medical insurance? I don't ever see a freaking, if I get nailed by a bus or something, fair enough. But, or God forbid, get cancer. But apart from that, I don't see a doctor. There was a time when humans didn't have doctors, so it's not that kind of a mythology. But again, like you said, if you're the gentleman that comes to your trivia night, that family is probably going to need a lot of medical care. So, to give yourself the freedom, you have to address the things that are shackling you, whether you're, overspending or whether your health is limiting you. And so, I think that's, again, going back to the health of the nation. The healthier the population, the more cool shit these people will be able to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
there is.
It's just the pressure alone of, I think a lot of people, whether it's being trapped in a job like that or trapped in a marriage, for example, where everybody kind of maps out their life and they just take the comfortable thing and they do what makes sense at any given time. And it really comes down to, I mean, it's because of a lot of things. Again, pressures from your parents, pressures from your peers, pressures from the people around you. Because I'm seeing this with my daughter right now, but it's like, at the end of the day, you got to be happy with yourself, man. Like that's all you got. You can have people around you, and of course it's important to take care of your kids and your wife and your friends and whatever. But like, if you can't take care of you, you can't even do those things. And I see so many people who just sacrifice that to for the status quo, for the thing that they've again, the golden handcuffs, man.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that term, but that's fucking brilliant.
I like it. It's solid. It's
Yeah.
getting used again, I assure you.
So
go ahead.
And putting your time forward to something, even in a time of struggle, or if it makes you struggle because you're taking less money or you don't have those things, if you're doing something useful and important to you that's meaningful, that shit doesn't matter as much,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Someone shared a quote, actually. I forget, it was like Rudyard Kipling or something, and I can't remember what it said, but it was just that, that there is real freedom when you're not just chasing the dollar, that you're actually doing something that is going to make the world better. And that, when I'm talking about the fire service, we've chased dollars. We're always, just looking for crumbs that these governments are handing out.
Yeah.
And we need to reframe that, because the real currency is time with our family, time with our kids.
Yeah.
You cannot get that back. You might get a $10,000 pay raise, and what will probably happen is your lifestyle will expand and you'll still be looking for the next paycheck. But each 24 hours that you're told you can't go to your family, you're never, ever going to get that back. When your son or daughter turn around in the auditorium, search the chairs, and you weren't there, they're always going to remember that. So to me, that's the ultimate currency.
Yeah, I like that one. The one that says your job's not going to remember that you worked overtime. The only people who are going to remember you working overtime are your kids.
Exactly, 100%.
And
it's also a social thing, a societal thing, with people feeling like that success needs to be proven with things, with material items. So then it becomes, I make more money, so now I'm going to get a bigger house and a nicer car, but then I need even more money, so I got to commit more to the job. And it just becomes this trap that people fall into in society.
Excess.
And I think it takes being 50 years old a lot of times to like get to that wisdom, where you're like, hold up, dude.
Yeah, I mean, even just watch the TV. What are you told on TV? If you are in construction, then yeah, you need a truck. And, the Hemi and all that stuff might be pertinent because you're hauling drywall and who knows what. But if you are an accountant, but the raspy dude in the truck commercial says you're not a man unless you have this $80,000 truck, then maybe you don't need an $80,000 truck that's crippling you. And then you're whining about diesel prices. It's like, well, you bought a truck and you're an accountant.
I blame you for this.
Yeah. So we're sold some of this, and some of it, like I said, if you're using your vehicle the way it's supposed to be used, and that's a need and necessity, then that vehicle is for you. But coming from a country where people tow things with cars, this what you're being sold in. I mean, how many times are you actually going to drive up a rock quarry hauling a boat?
I was going to say. So y'all got some tiny ass cars over there too. Stuff like all the smart car Fiats that are tiny here. Yeah, like that's how big a lot of y'all's are.
Yeah, not much.
The original
bigger,
Mini Cooper was like, if you had a passenger who was also broad-shouldered. Can you
I had two minis, the original Mr. Bean minis.
Like
998 cc's.
Man,
dude, Mr. Bean is the jam. I haven't watched Mr. Bean in forever.
Man, Minis running around just makes me think Italian Job immediately, though.
Mm-hmm. That was a good movie.
The original one, the good one.
Oh, I like both. But yes, I meant the original because the little ones. They had the newer ones and the newer one.
A lot of that mentality comes from the keeping up with the Joneses thing that a lot of people in America are just guilty of, and they don't even think about it. They do things to try to get the approval of people they don't even give a shit about. You know, like let me show you how successful I am. Like, I don't care. You're a good person. I don't give a fuck if you drive in a jalopy or a fucking Lamborghini. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah, a lot of kids wasting their 20s and early 30s putting on a persona for social media.
Yeah.
Like the house can't be, we have an aesthetic house. So like the kid can't have fun, colorful toys. It has to be this color and that kind of crap. I'm like, when you let it affect things like that, I would say the little, what was it? 12-hour hiccup that TikTok just had. Cause it's back already. It was banned from like 10:30 last night until like 2:00 today. But I realized that, oops, I'm a level of addicted to social media. I accidentally opened it, just not even thinking about it, reflexively, like a bunch today, where it shut down. Stupid, quit opening us. It's opening the fridge to to see what the food's doing. Still, like I literally moved it. I hid it in my screen so I wouldn't keep just hitting it absentmindedly.
Yeah, I took it off my phone thinking it was going to be gone for a while, and my wife was like, "Oh, it's back." I'm like, "Oh, I don't use TikTok really at all. I just put the videos from the podcast on there, just another arm." But yeah, I was like, "Really? It's already back?" But yeah, what's funny, I'd love to see the numbers of Pornhub because I think in Florida to go on porn, you have to put your ID. I bet you they've tanked.
No. So Pornhub literally nixed Florida altogether.
Oh, really?
Because Louisiana was already doing it. I don't know what other states were, but Florida officially, you have to put in your driver's license for most porn sites to limit what children can get access to. And Pornhub literally was like, "Oh, well, fuck that. We're not going to limit people, but we get what you're talking about. So no more Pornhub for Florida." So yeah, they straight up were like, "You officially can't get us if you're in Florida now."
Well, I'm not moving back to Florida. I was thinking about it, but
I'd love to see the numbers though. I bet you it was hilarious.
Yeah, I would say. I know there's a lot of baiters in Florida, baiters and gators.
Dude, that's about the time I learn about the dark web when they cut my porn. I'm like, well, guess I'm gonna start getting on the dark web.
You just figure out which ones are still doing whatever. Basically,
recording you through your camera though, so you're probably on the dark web now.
Probably.
No, man.
Dude, I was way ahead. I don't have a camera on these laptops, so I have two different laptops. I use one for my regular shit and one for the studio. So the camera is off, like it's a separate camera or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when I used to have a camera attached to the top of the laptop screen, I always taped that bitch up before as soon as I bought it.
Yeah, seen too many movies. Dude. I'm sure it's possible, but I've also seen too many movies. Mm-hmm. It's like, just in case.
Oh, it's definitely possible. There's a guy called, I can't remember the name of his channel on YouTube. I fucking love it, though. He basically spends his life going after scammers. So, like these Indian or wherever, Moroccan companies that, like, cold call old people and convince them that they're...
Not to generalize, but...
Yeah, I mean, it happens in the U.S. too, but let's be honest, we know where it comes from.
Yeah. I'm tracking.
But he calls them up and uses a different voice, and he ends up like acts like he's allowing them to do what they're doing, but in the meantime, he's like backdooring them.
Yeah.
So he gets in and deletes their files and gets into their camera and figures out where they live and like just fucks with them.
Crazy.
It's such a win, dude.
That's some movie shit. Jason Statham just did one like that. Miss Lady
Oh God, it was awful. That's one of the worst films I've ever seen. I looked up what a beekeeper actually wears. He was wearing fencing gear. Like I don't think even the beekeeping suit was accurate, no matter everything else.
I thought it was just maybe what the new age and the stuff I'm familiar with is what the old school beekeepers are doing, but it really did look like fencing shit.
Yeah,
that button all the way over here game, which always bugs me.
How big are these bees?
Yeah, for real. What kind of stingers these bees got? I'll still watch all the Jason Statham movies that are just a different version of that. I don't know why.
Exactly.
I want to sit in some of those meetings where they come up with these fucking movie ideas where they're like, we need something new. It needs to be an action movie just like all the other ones, but we need to make it with a little twist.
Yeah.
How about he's a beekeeper? Like, you're a genius.
Well, no, but then they tried to do a John Wick thing with that, where the beekeeping was like a organization within the government, like a shadow organization that the government knew about and just basically let do their shit because they were good at it, basically.
It didn't work.
But yeah, the lore didn't stick as well as John Wick did, that's for sure.
No.
And Jason Statham is good at those movies, but it was not a good version of one of those movies.
No.
The Corky Relief was a little too much for me half the time, but he's got another one coming out literally called Working Man. It's the same deal. He was a former whatever and is now
Special
a construction
forces.
guy, and the wrong person fucks with him. And then you're going down.
Jason Statham in The Hamster Breeder.
In the pool, man.
Just work his way through all the jobs. The barista.
Just generalize now. We're just working, man. That's it.
Dude, if they were
Here's
cool,
your
they would
fucking
just.
latte.
Yeah.
If they were cool, they'd just keep the same character and make part 2 the hamster breeder, part 3 the fucking barista, part 4 the, you know what I mean? Like,
No,
just,
it's always some other generic ass cool guy name. Like,
That was one they did about a real bank robbery. That was one of his best ones. I forget what it was called. Maybe The Bank Job, but he was really good in that. And I like him in Crank too. And the Lock
yeah, I
Stock,
would say there's some
those
wins
ones are
along
good.
the way. Crank was
Yeah.
great. What was it? Revolver. He's in the one with Brad Pitt, who's an Irish gypsy fighter.
Yeah,
what
that's
about the Meg?
Snatch.
yes,
I
that was
enjoyed the
great.
Meg a lot. I actually did not like the second one, which is funny. Like the first one was it was like a horror movie. It was really cool, where the shark was like Jason, and they shot it that way, and it was suspenseful that way. And the second one was like Jurassic Parker, like where it was just mostly running and we're losing until we win. And then he also in the second one, he takes a helicopter blade just and puts it in the right way that this megalododo get just wham on it. And he just, with a helicopter rotor, like not a little piece of something, like he just right on, and then he holds it in place when the megalodon hits it and gores itself on it, and he's just yeah. And I'm just like, what? You die so fast, die so hard. Like, take that, fish.
Yeah, it stinks, man. Like I hope that the changing of like the cancel culture that we've been living in for so long brings us back to some cool movies again. Because
some of them are happening,
dude. All I'm saying is that I can't take one more fucking Netflix spy movie. There's a new one every day, dude. Like, Jesus Christ.
In defense of the new one that everyone's excited about that I haven't watched yet, Cameron Diaz is back. She took a 10-year hiatus. This is her welcome back to acting.
It's a fine movie.
Cameron Diaz.
It's a fine movie. It's a fine movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying some of them are really good. It's just can we not just regurgitate the same fucking shit? There's no creativity anymore.
Oh yeah, Mark Wahlberg can go ahead and stop. Like he can't Pauly Shore or Jason Statham. He can't play the exact same motherfucker in literally everything, and I'm cool with it. Like, when Pauly Shore literally was the squirrel dude in everything, like same nickname and everything. Like, almost all those were fan fucking a weasel. There we go. I couldn't, but
squirrel.
Yeah. Well, no. So Biodome, he called the other one Squirrel. That
it's
was what it was.
Weasel, buddy.
But yeah, he played that exact dude with the same nickname and everything, and it worked for like 9 movies.
Well, I want to make my second book into a streaming series, and it's a modern day firefighter, but it goes all the way back to World War II as well as a kind of origin story. And what enthuses me is when I see the shit that's actually out there. I'm like, so in a boardroom, someone sat down, they said, all right, so Jason doesn't let the bees away, he keeps the bees. And then this lady, she loses her data. So, of course, what are you going to do? You immediately end yourself. And so then Jason gets petrol and he goes in and he finds these people with computers and he sets fire to them. All right, that's $20 million. Let's get it done. So to me, if, like you said, if you ever watch Backdraft 2, you'll understand. If Backdraft 2 can be made, then the story that I wrote, I think, would be 10 times as good. So that's what gives me hope. Those shitty movies, someone will give you the money if you can just show them. Just like you said, hey,
Just get into
I've
the
got
right
something
person.
that's not a spy movie. It's about
Yeah, yeah.
firefighters that you've almost never made any films about. How about us? So,
we got Backdraft, Ladder 49.
Only the Brave is a really good
Only
one.
the Brave. Only the
Mhm.
Brave. Holy shit. No one's mad about that one, right?
No, it's amazing.
Cool. I was about to say that one was poof.
What was the?
You know what's going to
You
happen.
might you might
and
have
it
already
still
said
hit.
it, but what was the one around 9/11 with what's his fucking name?
Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
I was in
I think
that.
it was called 9/11.
You were in that?
Yeah, the
You
World
were-
Trade Center. That was what it's
World
called.
Trade Center.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when I was living in California as a firefighter, but I was also doing the acting on the side, they wanted real firefighters as extras. So I got some Anaheim guys and got them in, and then there was Long Beach and LA. So all the firefighters that you see in the background are real firefighters. So
That's rad.
No
I
shit.
like knowing
so
that.
we were actually in that. So I saw Nicholas and all the other people. And then what's really interesting is one of the cops that story is about, Will Jimeno. I had him on the show and we became friends. So years later, having been on a set with this guy that survived the collapse, now I'm interviewing him because I've now started a podcast. So it's this really cool kind of, full
That's
360.
badass.
But yeah, I mean, no, he's badass to survive that and be the incredible human he is. I mean, that I wish that film had been seen more because that story is absolutely incredible.
Dude, I would love to get him on the show. He would
I
be
can
a
ask,
fun one to
definitely.
pick. Yeah, I would love that.
So military, we always like accuracy ends up being a huge part of why we love whatever show or movie. Is there that's the one to watch if you want to watch real fire shit? Is there one that is like accurate as hell and good?
Only the Brave does a good job of telling the story. Again, there's obviously Hollywood elements to it, but that's definitely received as a very respected movie, especially in the wildland community. Ladder 49, I would say, does the best. Backdraft was good because it was so long ago. They kind of have a little more poetic license then. But that is it. You've got the first season of Rescue Me seems to be pretty accepted, but then that kind of tanked.
In Chicago Fire or any of that is all real wonky.
I mean, I had the guy behind it, but his vision of these episodes, basically he was being very PC about it. He's like, obviously then Hollywood takes it and then they change it completely. But so you end up with a bunch of models that save everyone rather than actually a show about what we do. So, and then Tacoma
and horribly
FD.
done American accents.
Sorry. And then Tacoma FD is the guys from Super Troopers. So that's a really funny show, but it paints firefighters as lazy and stupid and never go on call. So that doesn't really do us any favors either.
And that's a funny ass show. The Broken Lizard guys are good at their jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're hilarious.
But yeah, I've never watched Super Troopers or Tacoma FD and thought, man, being a cop or a firefighter looks awesome. I want to do that and be lazy all day. But I hope people don't take that away from that.
Yeah.
Sounds like the life for me.
You know what gives me a little hope in that realm is that considering the latest election and how much of an impact podcasts had, and just the fact that podcasts are now getting so many viewers compared to mainstream media, I think there's a bit of a changing of the guard where people in like the general public is really starting to appreciate authenticity.
That's what I was going to say
100%.
when we were talking earlier about the what's going to get going and what you got to do and how the TikTok folks get famous or whatever. The ones who are authentic and present who they are only without all this frivolous nonsense, because the ones who are full-blown putting on a face get found out every single freaking time. And then everyone's mostly just mad about them lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can only hope that these Hollywood, the Hollywood suits that all determine, when you said that they were filming and they would send, or the dude was writing those episodes, and then once it got to Hollywood, they Hollywooded the shit out of it. Like, you're wondering if that'll change. Like, will those people start going, man, these people like appreciate authenticity. Let's lean into that.
I believe so. I mean, my story is raw, like, and I want it because it's not even like I'm writing, let me make this really raw. No, I'm just writing what we actually do and see and the impact. And because the interesting thing that people don't talk about is what especially fire and medics and law enforcement see. No one else in society sees. Even our military, they're overseas
It's a
seeing,
different thing.
things
Yeah.
in different other countries. But what we see in our own street, we see, the mental health crisis, the drugs, the gangs, the sex work, the homelessness firsthand. That is our arena. And yet that's not written about, especially not through our lens. So, I've had a lot of people that have said it's really hard to read the book. And I'm like, good. That means I wrote it properly. So,
I was going to say I didn't lie about shit.
No, but I think
was hard to
that
do.
rawness is wanted now. You see some of the really good television out there. It's gritty. It's really gritty. There's one called Asphalt City. It was Sean Penn. He plays a New York medic. Super, super gritty. Really raw. So I think I think there really is. Like, if this is what it's like in your world, then show me your world. Don't hold back. And in that way, then if you're not polishing and rounding the corners, then people are like, oh my God, that's me. I'm going through that. Or, I didn't realize that my dad had gone through that and that's why he drinks or was homeless or, whatever it is. And then I think you infuse compassion and empathy back in, because we're such a judgmental society, which is so kind of hypocritical if you look at how heavily we lean into our identity as religious. Yet the way we act at the moment is far from Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, insert, prophet here. So I think most people are good, but I think we need to see that again. We need to have the full spectrum of colors of society put in front of us, just not the Instagram highlights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's another big problem that society in general is so tribal. We pick a team, and our teams are what make us more judgmental, whether you're team Christian or team right wing or team left wing or team whatever, or team I vape or team I don't vape, whatever it is that everybody's that's not on your team, they're very judgmental of. Yeah. When you're right, it's like you could set that aside and be like, we're all pretty cool, man. Everybody's decent people are decent people. We all have our own shit. I like to I'm going to get off here and play NHL playoffs on my Xbox with my buddies from Canada. As soon as we're done, like, that's nerd shit, like whatever. But I like it.
Rob Schneider quote. If you turn off the news and go talk to your neighbor, you're gonna realize that the world's a lot friendlier place than they're telling you it is.
100%. I've never seen a race war out of my windows.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I've experienced racism. I grew up in a small town south of St. Louis. And when I was younger, there was some shit that was because I had some black friends I'd hang out with, and I saw some like blatantly racist shit by some people. But for the most part, I've interacted with colored people or people of color. I apologize, but black people, whatever, dude. I don't give a fuck.
Semantics, it really is.
And none of them give a fuck. You're like a green haired liberal sitting over here calling me out every time I say colored people.
It just made me laugh. I'm sorry because I know you didn't.
Whatever the fuck, dude. Black people. I'm around them all the time, and I don't see any of that shit. I live in a small town in Illinois, and
I had a white savior on my Facebook
people might
today.
think it.
Yeah. Fucking people, man.
Well, the problem is we give the microphone to all the dickheads. So then it seems like everyone's racist, or it seems like everyone insert negative thing here. But this is the squeaky wheel always gets to the grease, as they say. If we stop bringing in every idiot and giving them,
the dumb ones get the most famous.
I mean, look at CNN and Fox with the screens divided in 4. I mean, that is not the cream of the crop when it comes to the US, but they let them argue with each other. It's supposed to be the news. Like, here's what happened, the end. And instead, we've got Ding Dong, A, B, C, and D arguing with each other, giving their opinion on what's supposed to be the fucking news. So until we change that shit, we're always going to have this either, Americans, if we just take all the guns and the violence will go away, or we need to arm everyone and open carry, just like these extremes over and over again get all the fucking airtime. And the middle, which is, I would argue, 80% of us are looking left and right like a fucking tennis match going, what the hell is going on? I don't believe in either of these two idiots, and yet that's all you see, which is why it's so divisive.
Yeah, we need to get back to that's the way it was.
It's the death throes. It's the death throes of mainstream media. I mean, legacy media is on the way out, and they're grasping for straws. They're digging for anything that they can get, and they're blowing up all the wrong things because they have no integrity whatsoever anymore.
Yeah,
it's all just propaganda and bullshit. And I feel bad for people that are still stuck to that. Like, I don't watch that shit at all. I haven't for decades. Fuck that shit. It's terrible. I do. Although you were talking about the panel thing, you ever watch Piers Morgan's YouTube channel where he has the four guests on?
No, I think he's an idiot too. So I mean,
He is. He's an idiot sometimes, and sometimes I really like what he says because he's real honest about shit that people aren't. But he gets some really good guests on from both sides of an argument. It's an hour of them being able to actually talk. It's a pretty good show.
I can give credit to dummies who embarrass people who I think are bigger dummies.
Yeah,
I'd
rather just find the good people. You know what I mean?
I'm with you on that,
and push those rules out.
Silly people being embarrassed, even if it's by another silly person, I'm cool with that. Like, for now. Like, but hopefully everything's gonna get a lot more honest and real, and just literally, this is what is going on. Yeah, you feel about it how you choose to feel about it.
Exactly. That's how the BBC was when I grew up. It was just, this is the news. This happened here. This happened here. And also, when I was young, there was a lot of like fundraising too. Like even the kids' TV show, we'd be out doing jumble sales and selling sandwiches, and because there was a famine in Ethiopia or whatever it was. So it was very much all of us coming together. And I think we've lost some of that too. Comic Aid and Live Aid,
damn near all of it,
all that stuff.
Live
Comic
Aid.
Relief.
It's funny how there's still some people who will say, I'm not going to take my information from a podcaster or a comedian or a this or a that. And it's like, okay, keep going to a bunch of actors feeding you with bullshit, I guess. I mean, sometimes the people that aren't actually journalists are way better journalists than the journalists.
Yeah, because they're just trying to tell the story as opposed to listening to a boss.
If you just, every single episode apart from one, I guess my first one, and then I did one on firefighter shift work and just pulled all the information I had from all the guests. But aside from that, it's always me interviewing someone. So it's not, a good podcaster isn't telling you their opinion, for hours on end. They're asking the questions that most people would like to ask a real expert in that field. You're actually, like Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, you've written books on killing and war and the school shootings. Well, let me ask you, because you've done all this research, let me ask, someone who's been a strength and conditioning coach for 30 years about that. Let me ask this nutritionist or this mental health counselor, or these lived experiences from SEALs and, Afghan and, Iraqi commandos and, all the people. Listen to the people who are actually there. And, especially with the military picture, it's amazing hearing, not the war stories, but the human stories of our men and women in uniform. And they all, completely overlap. And neither of them match the sensationalism that you see back home on the TV.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is, when it comes to firefighters and paramedics and military and all these people, you don't need to sensationalize. It's already fucking insane.
Absolutely.
The shit that you really see is good enough for fucking people to be like, whoa. Yeah, you don't need to fucking make the story something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Super unpleasant already, guys. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, just I forget the canine's name.
Time.
The canine they had a police officer killed, and I forget which agency it was, but a canine found the killer, obviously with all the other officers that were there. I think it was the U.S. Marshals. The canine was shot, and then they airlifted this canine. There was a big thing like, we're going to treat this dog like one of our own, and it actually survived, and he walked out of the veterinary hospital a couple of days later like a boss. Like, you don't need to,
everyone
like you
doing
said,
the clapping on the sides.
Yeah, but you don't need to expand. You don't need to sensationalize. You just tell what happened in that call and how you ended up catching, and I think they killed a cop killer. Like, that story just needs to be told. Don't add anything to it. Just tell the story. It is enough.
Yeah, I agree. Well, like I said, I hope we're shifting that way.
For sure.
Especially with as powerful as AI is getting and deep fakes and all that shit, at some point, I feel like the deepest authenticity of humanity, live music, live comedy, live things, people telling real stories, live video of real things, are going to be so fucking valuable. People are going to appreciate that because you're not going to know what's real otherwise. There's going to be so much bullshit. Crazy. Well, boys, we're at the 1 hour and 20 minute mark.
Yeah, we kept cooking, but do you have any saved rounds? Anything that you wanted to get into that we did not?
I don't think I do. I mean, I love, like we talked about before we hit record, I love the organic conversations, the
Yeah.
tangents. So I mean, there's 1,000 things that we could talk about, but I think we
Yeah.
hit some really interesting topics, to be honest.
I'd be
Yeah,
sad
well,
if there was a specific something you wanted to get into. So you'd
no,
mentioned
we need to grab him back. You need to come back on every few months or something,
Yeah.
and we'll just do
Part
this
2s and
again and
3s.
see what comes out.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
So then, is there anything that you want to plug that's going on with y'all stuff? You mentioned 2 books. Can we get the titles of both of those?
Yeah, thank you.
Where to reach out? Where to get more information?
Yeah, so well, the podcast is called Behind the Shield. If you just literally Google that, it should be the one that pops up mainly. There is I always give them a shout out. There's a Dungeons and Dragons gaming podcast that was out before mine. I don't know if they're still going, but that was called Behind the Shield as well. So if you see a wooden sword, a wooden shield, that's his or hers. I don't know who is. And then, but mine is like a black diamond. But
So if we click on it and they start talking about fucking orcs and wizards, then we probably
Wrong
click the
neighborhood.
wrong one.
yeah, but I always give them credit because they had that name and they had that podcast before I did. So
Yeah.
but then jamesgeering.com is a website. But yeah, I wrote 2 books, one 4 years ago called One More Light, Life, Death, and Humanity Through the Eyes of a Firefighter, and that's a nonfiction, and it's best description. It's a bunch of short stories that each chapter there's a takeaway. So it could be mental health, it could be addiction, overcoming injury, all kinds of stuff. And then the second one is called Kinder, and that's the novel that I just wrote. Both of those are on audiobook as well now. And that is, you see a present day firefighter paramedic, and it's, like I said, it's raw. But then there's a multi-generational trauma story that goes back to World War II France as well.
Okay, so that Kinder is the one that that could become a series.
Yeah, will become a series. I'm going to put it out there.
Do you
Manifesting. Will.
Exactly.
We'll
do
see.
you do the audiobook reading?
I did. So the first one wasn't so hard because it was stories from my career and life, and it was nonfiction. So, there would still be some dialogue, so I'd have to do voices a little bit. And this is funny. This factors now into that drama school. I did have to kind of lean into that. The second one, I'm doing a lot more, and it's not that you're being a different character completely, but your inflection in your voice, and then there's accents.
Right.
So that was so hard because that's not in my wheelhouse. But the thought of an actor trying to understand what I wrote about, like I said, with that real visceral rawness, I was just like, it's not going to happen. It isn't. So I have to do this. So I was, you talk about imposter syndrome. It was so, I mean, it was, it really beat me down mentally. It really did. But so far, I've had nothing but good feedback on the audio book too. So, obviously it's good enough.
Dude,
Where it's not distracting.
I'm going audiobook.
Yeah.
I got to hear this now, especially. But
Because that's a really impressive thing that some of the readers do. Is that the people who do the reading? Because some of the Witcher series, the guy who reads those, all the little voices and like when someone was talking, I didn't need that person said at the end of it. Like I could tell what he was doing every time, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But I get that'd be hard. Like that, you need to be cut out for that. So yeah, that's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, now
That would've been hard for me, too.
Is better than, like I said, I'm not a great actor, but I think
But
like
then you get a bad read where they don't read it with the same inflection or the same pauses or the same emotion on the same parts.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So,
So when you, just out of curiosity, when you did those readings, did you just do it at home using your studio stuff, or did you?
Yeah,
Cool.
just use the podcast setup. Yeah. So, I mean,
That's pretty dope.
if you look at it, I mean, there are certain things, it's got to be certain, size. And the first one, I was looking and they were like, I'll take the breaths out. The second one, I guess now people are saying, oh no, breaths are okay unless it's some deep. So it's evolving as well. But the bottom line is, even I heard Tim Ferriss talking about this in podcasting. Sometimes the guest quality isn't as good. Depending on their setup and everything. But he said if the content is engaging, if the conversation is engaging, the audience is forgiving about some of the, the tech stuff. And I agree. And I think it's the same with this. If if you've written a book that really you should be reading, will you sound like Daniel Day-Lewis? Maybe not, but does it matter as long as you're actually, articulate on the audiobook? And I think that's what I had to keep telling myself is like, yeah, of course you're not going to sound perfectly Polish, like someone from Poland.
Yeah.
But as long as
But
you can tell
authenticity.
it's that guy speaking, that's all
Right,
they need
right.
to know. So
Authenticity. We were talking about it a few times.
shitty quality. You need good content. That's why we have the best equipment in the world. Yeah, we got to compensate somewhere.
Shit.
Anyway, that's awesome.
Oh,
I'm gonna check out your podcast as well. Like I said, when we come into this, like sometimes Lance will give us a little like a little brief read of what it's about, and sometimes not. I didn't have anything on you, and I just don't want to know too much because I don't want to direct the conversation. I like this organic thing. I think it's much more fun.
Facts.
absolutely.
So anyway, just one last time, the book names and the podcast title, just for everybody listening.
Thank you. Yeah, books are One More Light, Life, Death, and Humanity Through the Eyes of a Firefighter, and the new book is Kinder, and the podcast is Behind the Shield.
Awesome. James Geering, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you coming on. It was an enjoyable conversation, and I think we're going to keep up with you from here on out. We also offer this to everybody. If there's anything, if you write another book or something comes up that you're involved in that you want us to put out, just hit me up. Either you can come back on, or else we can just mention it.
Beautiful. I appreciate it. Thank you, though. It's been an amazing conversation. Very, very. Every single podcast is different in a great way, and this was another unique kind of dynamic. So, thank you both so much for having me on.
Thanks.
Cool, man. Thank you, and thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Like, subscribe, share. Word of mouth's huge for us. We really appreciate it, and we're glad that you are all still fucking here.